Mockingjay Part 1 is almost here, and I'm super excited, so I have a very exciting video for you guys today. So with the release of Mockingjay Part 1 coming out Thursday, so just in a couple of days, I wanted to do a movie expectations sort of video, so kind of explaining the types of scenes and things that I want to see in the movie from the book. So I did want to do like sort of a top 5 scenes, kind of like I did for the Divergent movie, but there wasn't 5 scenes that I really wanted specifically, especially seeing the trailers and things, and I noticed that a lot of the scenes that I wanted to see in the movie are sort of hinted at too in the trailer, so I boiled it down to sort of 3 main things, 3 points that I do want to see in the movie. So one of the first things that I do want to see, obviously, in the movie is the propose, and that it plays a huge part in Mockingjay. And one of the things that I did really want to see is one of the first propose, I think it is, where BT sort of finally breaks into the to the Capitol feed, and this is when PETA warns District 13 of an imminent attack, and it sort of keeps cutting out between Katniss's propo and PETA in the interview with Caesar Flickerman, and as it's going in and out, you see the agitation in the interview, and then finally you see PETA get hit and sort of like blood sprays everywhere. So I really want to see that. I think that really kind of hits the nail on the head for kind of what's happening to PETA, without really outright saying it. Also attached to the propose, I am very excited to see Natalie Dormer as Cressida, I think it's pronounced. I'm very excited for that. I have a feeling she's going to have an expanded role, which I am absolutely 100% okay with, because Cressida is a very interesting character since she is a capital citizen, sort of turned rogue almost. So I'm really excited to see the relationship between Katniss and Cressida expanded, as well as her role. The second thing that I do want to see is District 13, and obviously we're going to see it, but I do want to see it as it's portrayed to Katniss. Now, obviously this book is from Katniss' perspective, so all we see is what Katniss sees and what she thinks with her inner monologue and stuff. So she sees sort of the darker side of District 13, and I definitely want to see that. I also want to see sort of the lighter side of District 13, especially when you see all the leftover citizens from District 12, how they see it as a safe haven, rather than something sort of like a prison that Katniss sees it as. So I definitely want to see those two sides. And attached to this thing, a specific scene that I do want to see is the prep team. And I know the prep team hasn't been like a huge, hasn't been elaborated on and hasn't really been in the movies. But I do hope that they have the prep team in that storage unit, and we see sort of this darker side of District 13. And I know that from interviews that I've seen is that Effie has taken over Fulvia's role in the book, and Fulvia is sort of like the coordinator almost for the propos, one of the people who's kind of in charge of them, I guess, which I'm okay with Effie taking over that role, because really in the movie there's no really need to introduce a new character like that, especially when Effie can sort of just take on that role. So I'm wondering, and I think maybe that Effie will be in the storage container with the 2 prep team we've seen in the previous movie. I'm thinking of the people when Effie first shows up at the beginning of Catching Fire, the movie, with those 2 people behind her for Katniss and PETA's like reunion for the victory tour. So I'm thinking that maybe they'll be the people who are trapped inside the storage container, being sort of abused and tortured almost. The last thing I do want to talk about is probably one of the things I'll have the most criticism for, and that is Finnick's role in Mockingjay. Most of these tabs are all Finnick related, and that's what the one thing that I do want to see in this movie is Finnick. Finnick is probably by far one of my favorite characters, simply because the layers and depth to his character are almost unlimited. I love Katniss and PETA also, but I think Finnick really tops the list for me because his story is so compelling. I think it's a little bit more compelling than Katniss and PETA's story, but that is a different discussion. I do want to see Finnick at the beginning of this movie broken, essentially broken, just like Katniss. He just survived his second Hunger Games. they saved him, and he finds out that Annie has been taken to the capital sort of as retribution for everything he's done so far, and he is definitely afraid of what they're doing to Annie, because Annie is also a broken character, much more broken than we actually realize, and more than the characters that we've seen. So I definitely want to see this broken, very uncharismatic Finnick, especially fiddling with his knots, because he doesn't know what to do with himself, and he's very different from how he's portrayed in Catching Fire, so I definitely want to see that. The next scene with Finnick that I want to see is when Katniss goes to District 8 for the first time, and before she leaves, Finnick sort of comes running out in his underwear, wanting and complaining that he wants to come, and Katniss sort of has to defuse the situation. And you see a little bit of the charismatic Finnick coming out through in this scene, so I definitely want to see that. I think it's hilarious, and it was so well done. Another little scene that I wish to see is when Finnick and Katniss are sort of in the hospital, I think it is, or they're in a room, I can't remember, but they see the propo and they're all excited, and then immediately it's one of Peeta's interviews where he's looking worse. And they pretend not to see it, and everyone kind of pretends that they didn't see it either. And I want to see the scene simply because it really highlights and showcases Katniss and Finnick's developing friendship. You could say in this book they become best friends because they're going through something very similar, and they sort of lean on each other for support. So that's the reason why I want to see that scene. I am very, very excited and anticipating this scene. And this is the scene with Finnick sort of telling his story about what the Capitol has done to him over these past few years, pretty much making him into a prostitute, a sex slave, if you will. So I really am hoping they keep that scene in there because it really highlights and showcases Finnick's character and what he's had to do to survive the Capitol. With all his secrets. Catching Fire really foreshadowed it with Finnick saying that he hasn't dealt in anything as common in jewels or coins in years because he deals in secrets. And I think that's a very important part of his character, and really explains the character difference we see of him in Catching Fire versus Mockingjay, because he is completely different. He no longer really has those walls like he does in Catching Fire. So those are my top sort of 3 general moments that I want to see in this movie. I have high expectations for this movie, especially after Catching Fire was done so well. So I just really wanted to talk really quick about where I think the split will be, and I read an article where it talked about the split, and they're predicting it to be after they rescue Peeta, which is where I thought they would split the movie as well. So that's around chapter 13, 178. And I think they're going to put that split there simply because it's a great way to leave off, because then the story sort of hits its peak around there, and then we have the downhill to the resolution in the next half of the book. And also another big clue for that is the Mockingjay Part 1 soundtrack, where I can't remember the names of the song. I think it says "We're Back," and the last song is "Victory." So that's probably where they'll end it. I don't know whether or not they'll explain what happened to Peeta in this movie or the next, but it'll probably be Peeta comes back and he tries to strangle Katniss. We get a little description of what's going on to him, and then the movie will sort of just end on a nice cliffhanger like that, with them not really knowing how to fix him. So those are my expectations for the Mockingjay Part 1 movie. Let me know down below what you're expecting, where the split will be, anything related to the book and movie. Thanks for watching. Bye.